Wenn sich ein chinesischer Künstler mit dem Krampus beschäftigt und in Tirol eine Ausstellung macht, ist das natürlich ein Risiko. Wir wissen sehr viel über den Krampus. Wir haben unsere persönlichen Erfahrungen. Wir sind sozusagen alle irgendwie, im Gegensatz zu einem chinesischen Künstler, Insider des Krampus. Und das war auch der Grund, warum wir Kurt Tong eingeladen haben, der nicht in einem Wohnzimmer als Kind gesessen ist, als der Krampus zur Tür hereingekommen ist, sondern Kurt Tongs primärer Zugang zu diesem Brauch waren eigentlich eine Reihe von Horrorfilmen. Er ist also eigentlich medial inspiriert und nicht mit einer persönlichen Geschichte mit dem Thema verbunden. Tatsächlich ist es aber so, dass Kurt Tong spezialisiert ist auf kollektive Rituale. Er beschäftigt sich in seiner Arbeit mit Folklore, mit Totenkulten, mit Riten, die Gesellschaften entwickeln, um mit zentralen Gefühlen umzugehen. Beim Krampus geht es sicher um Angst, es geht um das Unheimliche, es geht auch um Gewalt, es geht aber auch um ein Miteinander von Gut und Böse. Bei Kurt Tong spielt quasi ein alpines Yin und Yang, die Dualität von Licht und Schatten, vom Unheimlichen mit dem Bekannten, dem Krampus und dem Nikolaus, dem Lob und der Bestrafung eine große Rolle. Kurt Tong hat sich sehr intensiv mit dem Thema beschäftigt. Auf der einen Seite klassische Recherche natürlich, Internet und Bibliotheken. Er hat verschiedene Sammlungen besucht, der Besuch von einer Reihe von Ausstellungen, Gespräche mit Kuratorinnen und Kuratoren, hat angefangen, Postkarten über Krampus selbst im Internet zu erwerben.
I was told from the 1920s and 30s, Krampus is a very sexualized being and he's coming in, he's kidnapping women and someone's talking about eating them. So for me, this is kind of the perverted side of human nature that's kind of using Krampus to express themselves. And I was told these were actually sent as almost like Valentine's card to girls you have a crush on, saying you're gonna kidnap them.
Man sieht bei den Masken zuweilen ein sehr stark ausgeprägtes Kinn, gerade bei diesen Theatermasken, weil das eben welche waren, wo man die Maske vors Gesicht gehalten hat, um die Rolle quasi zu mimen, die man da hat. Im Gegensatz zu dem halt die ganz klassisch Krampus, wo ja gefinkelte Hinterkonstruktionen sind, damit man die Dinger aufhat und damit man rumspringen kann mit denen und dieses Theaterstück, das neue Theaterstück aufführen kann.
I collect kind of visual clues and I try to tell a story. That's kind of essentially what I do. But then when it comes to show the work, I always think, how could people interact with the work?
Die In-Situ-Galerie besteht aus 2 Räumen. Kurt Tong hat eigentlich eine Art Labyrinth geschaffen. Das Labyrinth ist jetzt nicht des Minotaurus, sondern das Labyrinth des Krampus, in dem dass man schneckenhaft sich in der Ausstellung bewegt, ganz im Dunkeln.
So when I was making the project, every night I would watch Krampus movies. There are actually 17 of them. I noticed a lot of the horror films, the better ones is when you don't see the monster. So the 3 big ones are actually a long exposure of Krampus films. So I would basically open the shutter when the monster's on the screen. So these are kind of long exposure of when Krampus is on the screen. So it creates this kind of colorful, foggy things. And with the right angle and the light, you can just see the figures. But mostly it's kind of a blur of different colors.
So how did you come about this photo?
So actually, as I started the project, I was looking into, this is going back 4 years, I was just looking for southern Germany and Tyrone region vintage photographs of Christmas. And then I found this site was selling old glass plates. So this is actually a glass negative I found, and I just added that figure. I photoshopped them, so it's been expanded from the original, which is already kind of creepy, to kind of weird figures. There's kind of something really creepy about this family, so I've added a lot of spirits. Good morning.
Wie lange machst du das schon, Martin? 45 Jahre.
Up until this project, I was still shooting on large format films, so they're kind of 4x5, 10x8 with a cloth over my head. But I knew I couldn't do that with this project. So this is actually the first digital project I've done in 15 years.
Geht nicht zu machen, so das bricht das sofort auf.
It was really refreshing to see Martin's mask, who are really very different. They're massive. The eyes, the nostrils are tend to be the eyeballs, so the masks are like the size of someone's torso, which I found really amazing.
Nachher auf und schaut dann praktisch da vorne.
I was very much told that what he does is not Krampus, it's Klauffbuff. I'm sure. Klaubauf. So what he does is Klaubauf, which I think a lot of Austrians even never heard of it.
Du musst natürlich schon aufpassen, was ist an die Kugelkasteln hin.
And I was told actually the Klaubauf culture, I guess the Klaubauf culture is one of the most active or violent, might be another word, and it's been studied by famous Austrian sociologists.
Das ist so, es gibt ohne Verletzung oder
I felt very lucky to have kind of him being able to help me and open doors for me as well.
Oh wow. Okay.
Every style.
When I visited Martin in Matre, he was able to introduce me to kind of the village, the other mask makers from the town. We visited a museum of Klaubauf. The owner of the museum actually has a studio, and the window looks onto a beautiful mountain. And I thought it was just like the perfect framing. You have the devil, the evil mask being worked on, but he looked into the most kind of beautiful landscape when he's making it. So this picture is kind of almost like the middle point. Also with the Martin's village, the Klaubauf, they steal your kitchen table. So instead of kind of coming in and act out the naughty list, they'll come in and steal your kitchen table, and if they take it and put it outside, then Krampus is won, or Klaubauf has won. So I think even what they do it also differs so much, but ultimately it's about scaring children, right? Which is what I'm doing here. And if you see the picture actually behind as you're leaving or coming in, it's the only picture you can see kind of modernity, and that kind of brings you back to reality. It's a custom that happens once a year, and this is back to reality. So that picture actually grounds the whole exhibition. You come in, that's the first thing you see, and the last one you see is the same picture. But I did include 2 real masks. I thought it'd be kind of a nice ending point to the exhibition as well.